to another episode of This Old Empire. This project, we're going to be taking this RT unit that is built on a COM-8 frame, and we're going to modify it with the Holme 323 system. So let's get started and go ahead and take this apart. Alright, welcome back. As you can see, we've gone ahead and taken the skins off the Astromech, and we've gone ahead and taken the legs off as well. Here you have the left leg freestanding. How do we know? Buttons forward. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we need to take and mark our locations on the leg where we're going to have to make some modifications. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take, let me back up a step. This leg has an extended booster cover. So what that means is instead of just being a little bit in here, it's actually much deeper underneath into the ankle. This was designed in order to allow us to have the legs sit higher in order to clear the battery boxes in order to do the 323 process without chewing up either the battery boxes or the sides of the RT unit with the skirt. Now, because of that, that's deeper. When we put Kevin Holme's system in here for 323, we're going to need to cut away this portion of the outer portion of the leg so that we can get in there and attach the pivot mechanism in there that mounts right in here. Now that means we're going to have to cut away this side facing of the leg, and we're going to have to potentially cut away one portion of the side leg. Now, in order to make sure we do that, we don't want to go any higher than this ankle bracelet. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a nice little sharp pencil, and we're going to go ahead and mark our no cut higher than line. And what that does is that is the absolute highest we can go. What we'll do later is we'll then go ahead and get the thickness of the ankle bracelet, give ourselves another line, and that's where we really want to be, is stay under that line so that you can't see it all when it's moving around. Now, the other thing we're going to have to do is we're going to be able to mark the front portions of our horseshoe to make sure we know when we have to expand on one of the sides, we know exactly where the inside portion of the horseshoe is, and that we don't actually go beyond that when we make our enlargement. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and mark to the front side. And we'll just go ahead and make sure we mark the back side, just in case. It's always better to have to go back and have the marks already there than not need to have to reassemble the whole thing later and get back to it. So we'll just go ahead and do it this way, make sure we've got both the front and rear marked, and we've got all sides of this marked minus the back side, because that's an easy portion. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take off the horseshoe cover, and then we're going to verify that while the booster cover is still attached with the leg to the ankle and the ankle bracelet is still on there, that we can get our booster cover off while the ankle plate is still attached. And this is very important because that's the only way. You've got to get the leg together with the ankle bracelet on with the pivot pins in there before you put the booster covers. We've got to make sure the booster cover and the ankle bracelet are able to separate and move them up and down to disconnect it so we can put it back together. So we're going to go ahead and we'll be back in a few minutes once we go ahead and get all that done. Stick around. Welcome back to This Old Empire. As you can see, it's another beautiful day in the Empire. We got the launch bay doors open and let some air blow through. Last time we were taking off the booster covers, had marked the outer legs, and we're getting them ready to cut. Now one of the things that we were having to do while we were off camera, so our ankle bracelets were a little narrow and we couldn't get them all the way up the leg with the booster covers still on. Now this is unique because with this 323 setup, you need to be able to slide the ankle bracelet up the length of the booster cover in order to get it off, and then you can be able to remove this, and then you can access down to this panel that we're going to cut, so you can change the linkage. What that means is many of us, our normal process is we undo the pivot, the ankle to leg joint, then we slide the leg off, then we take the ankle bracelets off, and then we take our booster covers off. Now, because of doing that, that affords us a unique challenge. Have filed down a lot of the ankle bracelet in order to make some clearance for the booster cover. However, we are using these button cap hex screws, and they're Loctite in because they fit real well in here, and it gives us a nice large surface area from we're down inside these channels when it locks the booster cover on. And this booster cover and these screws were adjusted in order to make this a tight fit. It doesn't mar the paint, but we have to use a rubber mallet to get it on and off. Now because of that, we now have a challenge that we can clear these upper holes, however we cannot clear the lower holes. So what we're going to do, we'll go into a time lapse here in a second. The challenge we were having with these and how they were getting hung up right here on these lower ones. It wasn't giving us enough clearance in order to get out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and enlarge these holes, move them a little farther north, just the thickness of this cap, and that should give us plenty of room to go through there. And so go ahead, stick around, and enjoy this while we get a little grinding going. Alright, now let's go ahead and test fit this. As you can see, we enlarged them to the size of the cap screw. So it's increased about a total of 5 millimeters or about 1/4 of an inch. Alright, we're going to go ahead and reassemble this back together and make sure the good test fit works. Now these are cables that we already had run. The orange was just some gut cord in order to help get it up and down the leg shaft. No longer a requirement since we will be changing how we connect this in there. Alright, now we just kind of push it all up in. Now we're going to temporarily use some of our ankle bolts just to kind of hold it in place, make sure that we've got this actually working correctly. So now we go ahead and pop it up. Just gotta kind of work it gently until we get at that hole. And voila, it gets right out. Slick. Awesome. Now, we're gonna go ahead and do this on our second ankle, our second leg and ankle bracelet. We're gonna get it matched up so the two of them are in the same position, and we'll be right back. Stick around. All right, and welcome As you can see, we've got both our right leg and our left leg on the table, and we have enlarged the opening on both of these on the bottom. Here you can see the original size opening, and this is definitely a little bit larger. We'll bring it a little closer so you can see. So here is the original opening, and here's how we've enlarged it. You can see it's more oblong shaped. And what that does is all it just allows that button head cap to get in and out a little easier without having to totally sand or file away all of the ankle bracelets. So that way it's a lot cleaner look on the outside. Well, now that we have that done, I've gone ahead and pre-marked with the level, or square, excuse me, and I've identified our no higher than cut line. So the next fun step that we need to do is we need to open this entire portion up. So we're going to go from the inside, we're going to mark the insides where the interior sidewall is on both the left and right side here, and we'll make sure we stay within that. We don't want to sacrifice that if we don't have to. And it doesn't have to be perfect, this is just government work. We'll be able to grind it closer if necessary. This is just to give us an idea of where our sidewalls are. There's no point in trying to grind through that and then suddenly realizing that we made a mistake. That looks good. And that looks good. Now, some of you are saying, why don't you just use your tools to verify the thickness and make sure you don't go any past it? But to show that we're okay, we're looking at about 0.2 inches. And what we've got identified there is slightly greater than 0.2 inches. So that will work. Again, 0.2 on both sides. And our lines are just a hair beyond that, which is great because that'll allow us to refine the side as we need to. Alright, so we're going to speed this up. I'm going to go ahead and put on the cutting discs, and we're going to cut out this entire panel. Can't believe I'm doing this. Now, important to understand is the reason we're doing this. So when we open out this panel, so the booster cover sits right here. Grab that. We're not going to push it down all the way. As you can see, the extended booster cover comes down over the line, and I have a little bit more that I can push it down, but it's going to come down to right about there. Now, this is important to know because this panel has to be able to be opened up because these the mounting mechanism inside to make the leg be able to pivot has to go into these mounting holes. Now, because of that, you got to have a way to get in there. Otherwise, you have no way. You can't get your hand down there inside of the ankle, and you definitely can't get a hold of this. You need to be able to open this up so you can get in there. Pliers, tweezers, forceps, whatever it takes. As Kevin says, maybe obscenities and a few prayers in order to get in there to get the pivot mechanism mounted, as well as to establish the linkage between that comes out through the ankle and through this, because this is actually going to be the pivot point right here. Well, correction, on this side. Now, so what we're going to do is, we're just, like I said, we're going to cut it all open and we'll make it look nice and clean, and hope we don't screw this up. if you couldn't figure out what was going on, this aluminum plate gets really hot. That's one of the reasons I wear gloves. But in this case, I was actually heating up through the gloves and made it really, really toasty. Wow, that's a big hole in the leg. So as you can see, we're just off the sides. And what I was fighting with and kept looking at initially was the weld that was right here in this spot. It was cutting through it, and it was taking longer, and wasn't sure everything was lining up right. But as we went down, you can see maybe a millimeter off the inside edge there, and then maybe a millimeter and a half on that edge. So the next fun part is, the other thing is I left this, so there's our bottom of the ankle plate, and there's the top of the ankle plate, so that's the overall thickness of it. Now, one of the things that if you'll notice, I gave it about 1/4 of an inch standoff. Now, why did I do that? Fudge factor. I can always dial it up. I can never go back. So I wanted to give myself at least 1/4 of an inch. I can figure out what's going on as we get going on this and actually get it in there. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to take off all of these stud holders, retaining fit bolts, whatever. Can't remember what they're called. We're going to take those out next, and then what we'll do is repeat the same process on that leg. Alright, as you can see, we've knocked all of those out, and that's just a little E6000 that was on there originally. When I had done this, I had secured the leg to ankle spacer on here with some E6000, just so I didn't have to deal with it sliding around and moving on me. And I'll probably clean up a little bit more of that as we go. So it'll peel right off. But the important thing is that we got these captive studs. That's what they're called. I told you I remember while I was getting my aggression out on not remembering. So all those captive studs were just press fit in there. Really well done. As you saw, it take 3 or 4 hits to knock those loose, and I was not being gentle. As if you could see, everything on the workbench was jumping, probably to camera as well. But we got all 8 of those out. And that is now open and ready to receive the leg bracket, the mounting bracket. The only thing that we'll need to do before that is we have these templates that we printed out. This is heavy cardstock. It's 1:1 scale. So what I will do is I will open this up, and I will drill out these 4 holes so they align with these 4 holes. I should be able to put a bolt straight through, and then we will open this up, and then we will use a drill press. Actually, not on this side. Correction, we'll do it on this side. This is the back side. This is towards the body, which is why these holes are small and these holes are small. That's why we check. Measure twice, sometimes 3 times, cut once. So we'll match that up. I've got the wrong template. That goes to the front. That is the front of our leg. How do I know? Easy. So here are the holes for the horseshoe. So there's 6 holes for the horseshoe. If you notice, there's 1 more hole right here. I did this so that I could put a long captive stud So here's a horseshoe. It's the wrong horseshoe, obviously. It doesn't match up. So I have a long captive stud on my lower button. I'm a firm believer in buttons front, but this would allow me, if I ever needed to, I could flip-flop it. So you basically have it goes through, and so it goes through in the lower portion and secures right in to this hole right there. And what that allows me to do is to basically lock these horseshoes into place. And so if you pull on it or you have to lift up on your droid, you're not going to have your horseshoes pop free because, well, these are just slotted tabs. And so that's exactly what happened. It would just go bloop, and it would slide right up. And we don't want that. So we created these. Again, big fan of the button caps, so I'll use more of those. That way everything kind of stays in place, and that's where it's there. So that is how I know that this is buttons front, because that is the additional hole for one of these. So with this being the front, this will sit on like this. We'll use the drill press, we'll punch out these holes, because this is where the bolt will come through. And this is where the whole mechanism comes up right along this side of the leg, and comes right through here, and this is where it will shift between to get our full range of motion. Alright, stick around, we'll be back.